Ready to roll? Yeah, start. Okay, so it is 11 o'clock, so we will get started. Good morning, my name is Jamie from the Edmonton Pride Seniors Group. Thank you all for attending our weekly Aging with Pride discussion group for 2S LGBTQ plus seniors and our friends and allies. We are presently in our third season, and thank you too to our partners Sage and the Pride Center of Edmonton. Before I introduce our speaker, I must acknowledge that we are located on Treaty 6 territory and respect the histories, languages, and cultures of First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and all First Peoples of Canada, whose presence continues to enrich our lives. I must also let you know that this session will be recorded for future use on our YouTube channel. If you don't wish your image to be recorded, just please close your video feed. And now it's my great pleasure to introduce Carl from the CNIB. And whenever you're ready, take it away, Carl.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me today. So as mentioned, I'm from the CNIB, so the Canadian National Institute for the Blind, as well as our sister organization, Vision Loss Rehab Canada. So I'll tell you a little bit about the two sort of different pieces of our organization in a little bit. But I guess I'll sort of start with one of I mean, we have kind of a handful of themes that we like to talk about when we come to speak to an audience. So blind etiquette is a big piece. So a lot of people don't necessarily know, little things that they can do to make that experience of a blind person a little easier, perhaps. Maybe they don't know how to offer help. There are little things that we can do to help keep their environment safe, right? As people who can't see, there are hazards in paths, right? So we want to talk a little bit about some of these things that we can do as a community of people who live alongside people with disabilities such as sight loss. So in the blind etiquette piece, we have little tips and tricks that we like to offer people who maybe have family members or friends or neighbors or colleagues who live with sight loss. So little things that we can do to keep our people with sight loss safe. Now, sight loss is a spectrum, right? From low vision, people who still have some usable sight, to complete dark. The majority of people are not on that complete dark end of the spectrum. The vast majority of our clients have some level of usable sight. That might just be the light perception. That could be they have no central vision. Could be that they have peripheral vision. There's a lot of things at play there. So in that spectrum, there's a lot of things to keep into consideration, or the tips and tricks that we can offer in making people's lives a little easier. Hello. So in thinking somebody who can't see walking into a room, if we are living in a safe space or sharing a space with someone with sight loss, what are some of the things that we can do? I'm going to assume that perhaps some of you here have friends or maybe have some young people perhaps in your life, little kids. And one of the things that parents are often after their little kids for is right inside the door, right? Because somebody with sight loss isn't necessarily going to see those. So they're a hazard. So little things like
pick up your toy.
Exactly. Yeah. Pick up the toys. So keep that floor place as clear as possible, free of obstacles. And that would go for, spaces, other public spaces. So like grocery stores, an aisle in a grocery store, somebody who maybe only has their central vision, but all the peripheral vision, all those, little displays that are only waist high, they're not gonna see those, and they're gonna kind of potentially walk right into it, right? So it's a bit of a hassle. So little things like that that we can keep in mind is keeping, the paths clear of obstacles. Keeping doors fully closed or fully open. So, a door that's left kind of with a gap, pretty easy to walk right into it. Same with cupboards. Make sure that cupboards get closed. Chairs get pushed under the table when we're done sitting in them. Other little tips and tricks that we can suggest when you're engaging with somebody with sight loss, often being very descriptive is, very, very helpful. So rather than, saying it's over there and pointing when they're not going to have any idea where you're pointing, perhaps, it's at 10 o'clock, it's at 3 o'clock. That can be really helpful in directing somebody to where they need to. On that etiquette piece, we want to talk a little bit about guide dogs as well. So service animals are working creatures that are there to keep their handlers safe. So that etiquette piece also extends to their service animals. Guide dogs in particular, we want to make sure that we are not distracting them because their job is to keep an eye out for obstacles, moving cars, other people, be able to find entrances, all of those things are really important to somebody's mobility and, their freedom to navigate their spaces below. So it's really key that we don't distract guide dogs, and that includes everything from making little cute talk, oh you're so adorable, to food, to even making eye contact with a service animal.
Or just trying to pet.
Absolutely, yeah, definitely petting them for sure. And I mean it's hard sometimes to resist because yes, they're often so sweet and they're usually so incredibly well behaved that it's actually really quite impressive when you get to watch one of these animals work. So that etiquette piece, we want to make sure we extend that to some of these services as well. I don't know if anybody here would say they're sort of part of the sight loss community, or maybe have neighbors or friends or family members who have that experience at all. But there's a lot of stuff that we as a community of people who are generally sighted, things that we can do to ensure that people with sight loss are not isolated, they have access to the same services and programs and public spaces as we do. And a big piece of that is, guide dogs, they're essentially allowed to go anywhere and everywhere that the public can go. The only places that they can't go would be a operating room, sterile spaces, or a commercial kitchen. But they could go like to a swimming pool, they could go to a gym, they could go to a restaurant, all the spaces that your average person who go and access the service animal gets to go alongside. They go in the pool? No, the dog isn't going to be swimming in the pool. I suppose if it's a private pool, but public pool, no, you're not going to see a dog in the pool, but they'll sit right alongside the pool there waiting. If the swimmer goes up to the side of the pool and calls the dog, it's gonna come right to the edge of the pool where they have to be. Yeah, these creatures are so smart, and I mean they go to this.
I'm so well trained.
Exactly. Then there's a lot of work that goes into preparing and for that type that type of work. The CNIB, we have our own breeding program and guide dog training program at the CNIB. And that process starts from, the birth of a litter of puppies. The puppies then get to go into the community and live with a family to learn, just being a dog basics, going to the bathroom, things like that, how to wash the leash. About 6 months old, that service animal that dog is going to go into training, 6 months to a year in that range. And they're going to go into a training program that lasts about a year. So a dog doesn't actually go into service until it's about a year and a half to 2 years old. The CNIB program, there's a whole bunch of different service animal programs out there, but our program in particular is special because we cover every single cost related to the life of that animal, from food to vet care, all of the training costs, and that's about $50,000 over the life of an animal. So that's pretty significant, but it is all done through charitable donations by Canadians donate to our organization for that purpose. So we're pretty proud of that programming. A service animal like a guide dog is really, it gives somebody the freedom to live the life that they choose, right? Similar to how a cane and learning how to use a white cane gives somebody mobility and the ability to navigate the space. And these canes are also an incredibly important tool to that person who can then go out and navigate their space safely. Canes also identify somebody as having sight loss, right? So there's a couple different types of canes that are available. Just an ID cane, which will look very similar to this. The handles aren't quite as robust, and they're not going to have special ends on them that allow them to be like rolled along the floor, for example. They're essentially just something that someone's likely going to hold just to identify them as somebody who has sight loss, but they generally are people who still have a fair amount of usable vision. Canes like this are going to be used a little bit for the mobility, so being able to navigate that space, to be able to determine obstacles and things like that. Now these canes, so this one has something called marshmallow end. So this end rolls, and you've probably seen in movies, people, that, and they don't train people to do that anymore, do it that way anymore. These canes roll along the floor in front of them. That way you're not gonna, miss an empty manhole or something like that. But you're not gonna miss any of those potential accidents that are in your space. So they're both really important tools to the safety of the handler, the user of the cane, as well as just again their ability to go out into their community and experience life. Yeah. So most countries, so like if you go to the UK, their canes are going to be completely up. We have red here, so we have snow. So the red helps make sure that you can actually, for the people who still have some usable vision, it's something that can be seen against the snow. Yes. So that accessibility and inclusion piece is really incredibly important. And I think we have, as a community, individuals from the LGBTQ2S community, we certainly understand that importance of inclusion. I think it's probably something that's self-awareness of. And that same thing applies, of course, to people who have disabilities. People's lives, people who are blind are are incredibly capable humans, right? They are intelligent, they can access education, they can do jobs of all kinds. You know, it's really actually pretty amazing to watch some people that you would, and just generally thinking about it, it's kind of like, how would somebody do these things? And it's pretty cool to hear some of the adaptations and tools, technologies that get used to make life accessible to these people. You know, accessibility doesn't just apply, of course, to you know, being able to go out and walk your dog in a, or go to an LRT station, for example, you know, having the edges of the platforms, making sure that they're textured, right? There's something that can be felt with cane or foot, the right colors, hopefully. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into making a space accessible, but that applies to things like websites, reading materials, stuff like that, right? So kids in schools, for example, I'll be honest, there's not enough done for kids with sight loss in schools. This can be quite challenging. However, there are all kinds of adapted, you know, things like geometry sets, you know, large print textbooks. And these are things that are really important for
audio books.
audiobooks, absolutely, yeah. And we'll talk about those in the technology piece of this. I have a couple things here related to audiobooks. Yeah, absolutely. Audiobooks are a huge piece of accessible for people with sight as well as Braille, right? Braille literacy is a real important tool to help people. You know, yes, an audiobook is fantastic and they still get the message, but that doesn't help a kid learn how to write. Doesn't help a kid learn how to spell, right? So if you can't spell, and you don't have that practice and being able to learn how to spell, you know, that can be a limitation for sure, being a challenge in being able to then go and live that life you want to live in your future and access higher education perhaps. Yeah, so you know that accessibility and inclusion, you know, people with sight loss, I mentioned often, okay, maybe I shouldn't quite use it often, but people with sight loss can have you know, lose social. Maybe they never, as somebody with sight loss from you know a young age or as born with sight loss, you know, going through a school system, going out into the community, you know, those can be challenging experiences for a young kid with a disability. So it's you know, a big piece of the presentation work that we do is going into school systems so that kids can understand about, you know, they see somebody using something that looks a little strange, a weird piece of technology, they then can recognize, oh, that's what it's used for, and that's how it helps that person. And it creates certainly a level of understanding where that individual is coming from. That same thing certainly applies to adults who you know, lose their vision as they get older or perhaps from an accident, right? If you suddenly have an accident and lose your sight at 45 years old after living a life of being sighted, you know, that can create a lot of isolation from family, friends, work, the whole social world around you, and how you're going to experience things that you once did, movies, reading, you know, all of those things are going to change. So, you know, being able to train people on how to adapt and make changes in their life so that they can continue to be successful and engaged in the world around them is really, really important. And that's where, again, that piece of so the like, right now. Essentially, the things that we can do that I suggested earlier about making sure a space is kept safe, so the etiquette piece, pieces like that are really important because, losing your sight can be really scary. So to be able to go out in the community and be included and to participate, there's a whole lot that goes into that from O&M training, so learning how to use your white cane or being trained as a hand for the guides, or having people adapt, in a printing of enlarging documents for a kid who has low vision. So there's a whole lot of little things that go into that inclusion piece, as well as making somebody feel like they are being included, right? If not going into like call on our school systems, but I know many children who are through school. The schools honestly are completely failing to provide the tools and training that these kids are supposed to be receiving. We as an organization, a big piece of what we do is advocacy work. So we're certainly doing a lot of work to bring that to our government's attention, to seek additional funding, to make sure that a lot of these tools and teachers with visual impairment are in place. We feel that the technology piece is obviously, as I keep talking about, is a huge piece of some of these recycles. It's a big part of it all. And the school system, there are a whole lot of pieces of technology that the school systems currently have at their disposal that unfortunately these kids are not getting access to in the classroom because there's nobody trained on how to use them in the school system. None of the educators, not even the TDIs who are supposed to be helping with mobility, skills, or we're supposed to be teaching Braille. They don't know these skills themselves. Somehow they're supposed to teach it to the kids that literally are their job to teach these skills to. It's a challenge. So advocacy is a huge part of our work and a big piece of that inclusion. I touched on the white canes and guide dog piece. So I'll go into some of the technologies that we have. And I guess I should just invite you all, if you have questions, please raise your hand and interrupt. Yes, please.
So a person who's never had sight, how do you teach them about what's in their house? So how do you teach them about anything?
A lot of descriptive, so a lot of talk, a lot of touch and feel. There are this CNIB sister foundation, Vision Loss Rehab Canada, that they mentioned, their job is to provide rehabilitative services for sight loss. So they would do like the O&Ms, the ability training, canes. In that they will train people. So, for example, perhaps you enroll at a school or a university program. Somebody from O&M will come and help you learn that space. So they're going to come with you to school one day. They're going to walk with you through your normal daily routine or help you learn what that routine will even be and help you learn to navigate that space. Whether that's through using your cane, whether that's through listening. There are a lot of little pieces at play that go into somebody understanding the environment around them and they can't see.
The babies with hands on.
You got it. Yeah, a lot of touching, a lot of like talking about sounds. Oh, what is that? Oh, there's a car. What is that? Listen, what's that sound like? So there's going to be an entire sort of system in place to support that child in growing up. We start with, as an organization, we provide a lot of services for really, really young children. So before they access the school system, and then it's kind of up to the school system to do a lot of that work until they become adults. We certainly provide rehabilitative services to, children who are 10 years old or whatever. But a lot of that work is supposed to be done in schools. For example, you know, having somebody come in and help a kid adapt their space. So we have staff, we're going to teach like life skills stuff. They're going to help do adaptations in physical space. So that might be a way to organize things so that you know where they are, which is, I guess, another piece of that etiquette piece I mentioned earlier. If you're sharing a space with somebody, they have things in their place, and people use it and to put it back. Is that person going, right? So putting things back where they come from. But there's a lot of like little tips and tricks that can help this person adapt in their lived environments and their physical spaces. We have low vision specialists who are going to assist with everything from, and that low vision, so people are often very sensitive to light. So we'll help them choose proper lighting and, window covering, perhaps special lenses and glasses. Perhaps there's, magnifiers of different kinds, which are both, kind of the standard, glass, but they also come in digital forms as well. So the Blue XL is a great example. This thing here, let's find some words. Like I can increase this to be quite large. The other thing is, like, I can also we can change the contrast. So, change the contrast depending on the individual, right? That may be necessary for the particular condition. So there are, a lot of different tools and technologies at play. The technologies can be really basic, from something like a reason level indicator, which just go on the edge of a cup. When you fill it up, when the liquid hits these sensors, it eats. So you don't overfill, you don't spill and make a giant mess, right? So really basic, simple things to, pairs of glasses that are going to recognize spaces in the room. They're going to recognize the space and tell you, oh, there's a door at 10 o'clock, or there is a table in front of you.
Glasses talk.
Yeah, they have a little voice. There's an app on iPhone called CNIB. It's a Microsoft app. And this, like, you can take a picture, it'll describe everything in the picture, from textures of the wall, like to the how bright it is, the color, there's people in it. It'll recognize currencies, it'll scan barcodes like UPC codes and tell you the ingredients and products, or what it is, the ingredients, the weight.
Or don't come in here because it smells.
Well, the phone unfortunately is not gonna, the camera feature on the phone doesn't detect scent, unfortunately. So I think good thing people with sight still have a functioning nose. Yeah, that's okay. Yeah, so at least, people with sight generally, unless they've got a nasty cold, are still gonna be able to smell if you just farted, or if you're making chili for dinner.
Yeah.
So, I don't think that will be too much of a concern. That's okay. Yeah. The technologies are pretty impressive.
So AI will be.
Absolutely. I don't know if any of you, I used to work for Apple, so I have a kind of a keen interest in some of this stuff. And Apple just released their Vision Pro they're calling it spatial computing glasses, or looks like a ski goggle pretty much, right? And I think that like for low vision people, these are going to be game changers. You know, being able to blow a television up, or, you know, when you're watching, so it's that entire wall. You know, somebody who needs a magnifier, voila, it's done for you, right? Yeah, the technology is a huge piece in the lives of people with science. You know, so this cool gadget here is used for Braille. So you can connect, I could connect this through Bluetooth to my phone, and anything that is on the display in text format will, these buttons here, so these little white dots, if you can see on the camera, these little white dots here will raise in Braille, you know, to spell out in Braille whatever is being shown on your display. Also allows you to type in Braille as well. There are little tablets that have Braille keyboards and Braille displays built into them. There are massive full page Braille displays. So like if you were to scan a document, the entire page would show up in Braille. And as you scan another page, it would change to whatever happens to be on the next page, for example. So it's pretty impressive. Now, I'll be honest, it ain't cheap. It's really bloody expensive. Like that full page Braille display, we're talking about $25,000. So it ain't cheap. However, the really cool thing is that governments in Canada, here in Alberta, visual loss for social government, there's not enough funding, I'll be honest. We are short staffed because we don't have enough funding from the government to cover O&M instructors, enough Braille instructors, like we just don't have resources for it, because the government funding hasn't quite kept up. However, we, you know, these technologies are really key pieces to somebody with sight loss. You know, their lived experience is impacted heavily by technology.
Or what does O&M mean?
So it is for mobility training. So that would be like learning how to use your cane. That would be learning your occupied spaces. Sorry, one quick second here. That was the word I was kind of like looking earlier, was the what does the O&M? Yeah. Anyway, I didn't want to take too much time to try. Orientation, orientation and mobility training. Silly. I don't know how to look, but it's kind of obvious. Yeah.
So if you find out your low vision or like vision has changed, you just contact you guys and say, can someone help show me?
Yeah, so essentially you would do an intake with us. We would need you to provide, so you get a referral, which anybody can do a referral, so maybe self-refer, a vision specialist, and optometrist, ophthalmologist could refer a family member, friend could refer via websites. The only thing that we are going to need is your report, your eye report from your practitioner. That's really important in helping us kind of determine what you're eligible for, what kind of services you need. When I was talking about all that, you know, the expensive technology, there is like I said, there is a fund to help cover a large portion of those costs. So to qualify for that, you have sight loss below a certain, you know, number and stuff like that. So just stuff like that is why we need to see the eye report.
Didn't you guys build housing for blind people too, where you guys used to be?
No,
No,
that's a private developer who
yeah,
might be recorded, so I should probably be careful about what I say. They sort of used the fact that used to be our site as a marketing photo and
yeah.
put some braille looking stuff on their, you know, on their building. It looks really pretty, but yeah, no, there's no special housing in that building related to people with sight loss, unfortunately. Yeah. I mean, we're currently, I don't know, basically probably over the Cactus Club is on Jasper Ave.
Yeah.
So we're currently on the 6th floor of that building. However, it's not very accessible to on the 6th floor. We're moving down to where Struck 2 used to be. So we're gonna have a nice ground floor corner space there. The nice thing is we're gonna have a new Smart Life Center, where our Smart Life sort of brand is related to all of the accessible and assistive technologies that exist. So we have a great website that has a million different, maybe not a million, but a lot of products of different kinds, from, you know, magnifiers to books to victories. These are for audio books. To what else? Talking kitchen scales, to, you know, large print and braille playing cards. Bumper dots are a huge, really like simple, basic thing, but bumper dots are really common use for people with sight loss. So, you know, you're cooking and you can't see the dial and what temperature you're turning the dial to. You know, you just put one of these at 350 or 400, and they've got different shapes and different textures, different colors that help with that. At our building, we have them on the 6th floor elevator button, on the main floor elevator button. You know, people put them on their dishwasher, on their microwave, all kinds of, you know, buttons that you really want to make sure that you know where they are. So you can actually use all of these appliances in your home, you know, the dishwasher, for washing clothes, all that. So bumper dots are super, super cool.
I'm sorry to ask my question.
No, please do.
The braille books, is there a problem in school? Having enough braille books for kids?
You know, I don't know if it's so much a problem of getting braille books themselves. It's that the kids need to be trained to use braille. And that's kind of where the challenge is. Like for an adult right now who wants to access braille through vision loss rehab, you're looking at like a year wait list to access training, because we just don't have staff who know how to do it, and we don't have the funding from our government.
Or is just who teachers are there? Consolidation.
You can certainly get, yeah, private lessons. They're not gonna be terribly cheap again, and that would become somebody's pocket, right? So it wouldn't be funded by the government. But that would always be an option, absolutely. The nice thing is there's actually some really fantastic online training. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't really know how it works. Cause I mean, when I just think about it, I'm like, there's some stuff there, you know, I don't really know how that necessarily works. But there are some really terrific online resources for braille training.
Is it difficult?
Well, so I'm gonna try to see if I can make sense of it explained to me, and then I'll try to explain it to you. So, and I'll pass this around, but the locations of the dots on a 6, so it's gonna be 6 cells, and the dots are raised consecutively in order that makes sense. So like ABC, they're all like, oh, it's that one, and then you add B, it's the second, right? So there's a system behind the placement of the dots in the alphabet. So it's really about, you know, going through and starting by learning the very basics, you know, just like we would have in play school, kindergarten, ABCDs, to, you know, forming words, sentences, building blocks, you know, you grow with it. It's certainly not like something you can learn in 6 weeks, something like that, right? It's like a secret code. So there's
What's the depth of the dot? That makes it change from letter to letter to letter.
it's not
Size of the dot?
No, the size, they're all exactly the same, it's just the placement in that, the arrangement and placement in that 6 cell block, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots.
Look, like.
Yeah,
A
pass this
A
to,
is 1 dot, B is 2 dots. Like,
yeah, this is actually a really kind of cool thing. A local robotics club has 3D printed these to help us with basic, education around rail literacy. So they partnered with us and we created these to give to really young kids who are wanting to sort of start that ABC, learning.
And there's things on the money or drain too.
That's right.
Yeah,
There is braille on mine. Yeah, if you want to pass those around, feel free to see the blocks. Well, on the very bottom, you'll see what the English letter below what is represented on the block. And then you can feel the.
just sell them just braille on money, I did not know that. I want to like pull it on.
As well as the coins, you'll notice the edges of the coins are all different from one to the next.
Yes,
So that, as well as the size, obviously, but the texture on the edge is also tactile and representative to help people decide thoughts.
Is it the texting or is it certain fingers you use? And is it?
You generally just use your pointer, but I suppose it really depends on, the few things you have in your fingers.
Really fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very cool.
Yeah. So,
obviously, when you just instantly like, that's hanging up, you're like.
Right here.
Let me see. I'll put my pocket.
No.
I just want to see how it feels in my.
I'll be honest, I don't know, maybe I'm a type 1 diabetic, so maybe the feeling in my fingers is not as good as a lot of people's. However, I can't tell the difference from one cell to the next one. I don't feel the same. So, it takes a lot of training to recognize that sensitivity. It's doing touch.
Could blindness be part of another disease?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are a lot of conditions out there. Like people who are albino, for example, have a lot of sight issues. But there are a lot of different medical conditions out there that can.
I don't know how to phrase this. For people who experience color blindness, is that considered a sight loss as well? Or how is that handled?
Right, so although sight loss is color blindness is a form of sight loss, right? It's, particular piece of the eye is not functioning the way it's supposed to. We generally don't have a lot of services or support that can be offered for, color blindness. It's just sort of the way your eyes work. So it would be more learning about how to recognize based on the way your eyes were, recognizing color. It's learning how your eyes, particular to that one individual person, are working.
Okay.
I was going to tell you about technology. There's so much. Like I was mentioning the Apple Vision Pro goggle glass things. There are a whole bunch of other similar products. The reason why I'm actually really kind of excited about the Apple Vision Pro ones is they're a highly advanced computer system. The other ones are much more basic, still incredibly expensive. So the Vision Buddy, for example, great piece of technology. A lot of people use it, but it's about $7,500. The Apple one, which is a very highly sophisticated system, is about $4,500. So yes, the Apple Vision Pro and its functionality for people with sight loss is going to be dependent on a developer community to develop applications and stuff that need. And of course, Apple's we're very keen on Apple products because they have amazing accessibility features built right into the operating system. Android has accessibility features built in as well, not quite as good. And things like the Vision Buddy Pro, they just do a handful, a couple, 10 different things, relatively, specific tasks that they can be used.
Like what?
So again, they're gonna like recognize people in the room. They'll be able to describe, like scan barcodes. They're going to be able to tell you the currency that's in your hand. So very similar to like the CNIB app that I mentioned. They're gonna do a lot of that sort of basic stuff. You're not gonna be able to open a Microsoft Word document and have, that screen there and then have another I mean, I'd have to show you the way that this product is designed. It's mind-blowingly impressive. If you've ever watched like movies like Minority Report, and you've got that big screen and over here you've got another one and they're just kind of floating there in midair. That's what the Apple it's pretty cool. Yeah, so yeah, so it's like a ski goggle thing. Kind of cool thing about the Apple ones is it's not like it allows you to see the person's face behind the mask. So it's not their actual face, it's an actual display that's showing their eyes to you. So and I can't explain the whole product, right? This is just based on what I've watched on like, the product release notes and stuff like that. So I'm very interested. But it's a pretty impressive piece of technology. In a couple of years' time, people with sight loss is going to be. We'll just have to see how developers, product is being released in relatively small numbers to a community of developers who are then going to really design all the functionality that's going to exist for this device in the future. So, keep eyes and ears open for that in the future if you're interested, because I think it would be pretty impressive. Other things are going to be like smart appliances in your home, right? There, stoves, dishwashers, everything you can possibly imagine is smart these days. And generally, they've got voice commands and functionality built into them. So for people with sight loss, those are often pretty commonly used. Things like recreation. So it's not really say it's a certain technology, right? But thinking about going on houses, it probably looks like an extra large version of something that as Edmontonians were relatively familiar. So Edmonton, Calgary, Grand Prairie, there's flying hockey teams all around the province. They play tournaments, compete against around the country and around the world. So it's pretty cool that a lot of the stuff out there that yes, our site is kind of important for being able to participate in. There's all kinds of adaptations that have been done to make sure that accessibility inclusion piece comes.
Can I ask you a little practical question? Let's say you bought yourself the Apple thing that was $2,500. Can you write that off on your income tax because it's a medical device? Or do you need to have the disability thing first and then budget?
I don't think it would be something that could be written off because it's not designed as a medical device. It is a computer, right? Like an iPhone, like a laptop. There are certainly different programs out there that might help support funding the purchase of it, right? Like the STEP program, for example. The Apple one in particular, it was just released like a couple weeks ago, so where it's not currently, there's something I think STEP will currently cover it. But as apps and things develop for it that are catered to people's sight loss, I think we'll see that change. It will potentially be a product that is then covered under STEP. But so there would be programs out there to cover significant costs for you. It is dependent on income, but I'll be honest, it's pretty generous. It's a sliding scale, so even if you make, still making $150,000 a year, you don't that much money. You're still making a bunch of money. You may still qualify for some business companies. Yeah, like I mentioned, I think the tablet that had the braille display on it and stuff like that, right? We're talking about expensive technologies, like $8,000 or something. So, the pieces they're super pricey, but that's why the step funding is a really key piece to giving, people. I mean, people with sight loss, unfortunately, are often underemployed, potentially unemployed, right? Income is a big. The money in the bank is obviously something that people with sight loss have in mind when they're having to go and spend thousands of dollars on pieces of technology that essentially just allow them to go and relatively everyday opportunities, right?
And is it a provincial program or is it part of the CNIB?
So it is administered by the CNIB, but it is a provincially funded program. As is all of vision loss services. So the CNIB Foundation is all charitable nonprofit work. We take care of the advocacy piece, like summer like social programming, peer groups, training in how to use, or I guess not training, but like the Smart Life store, for example, would be part of the CNIB Foundation, the guide dog program, the CNIB Foundation. But the social piece is a big part. Like we have a summer camp in Ontario, like Joe. I don't know if any of you have heard of it, but it's this amazing. I unfortunately have not had the luxury of going to check this place out, but a lot of my colleagues have, and it just sounds phenomenal. Like incredibly, I mean, it's specifically catering to people with sight loss, so it's built to be a safe and accessible environment. But every summer, the foundation funds sending kids out from every single province out to Ontario for a week. Well, maybe multiple camps throughout the season, but sends kids out, pay for the airfare, all that kind of stuff, send the kid out for a week. And it's a pretty life-changing special experience for a lot of young kids. They do programming for adults as well throughout the year. I don't know if there's I'll be honest, I don't know if there's any financial coverage to support with adult programming on a camp Lake Joe. There may be, I just off the top of my head don't recall. There also, we certainly have client participant, people who access CNIB services, who again, maybe they receive their own age, for example. So we get a lot of our community who's pretty heavily involved in different volunteer roles within the organization and providing supports and services for other people, that peer support. And I mean, sight loss is a very each individual person's experience with it is so unique to that person. So going to an organization and necessarily expecting it, being able to talk to a whole lot of other people with different experiences like your own or like your own, you really want, important for people with sight loss and learning how to adapt things that somebody may have done that worked for them,
So does your organization have counseling? Because I'm sure it's pretty dramatic. Sight loss, autism.
Yeah, so that's a really good question. Mental health, we absolutely understand it is a big need for the sight loss community. We currently do not have funding to offer that service, but it is something that we are very keen to work towards, and it's something that is on our agenda for future provincial funding, for going after all kinds of big grants and
On your wish list.
yes, exactly. It's on our, unfortunately, there's a few things on that wish list, but it is definitely one of the big pieces. So currently what we do is we refer to other organizations in the community, the family section, for example.
Which they're the ones that have their drop-in counseling here today, because we partner with them too. 'Cause we can.
Yeah, they do a lot of work out in the community, so organizations like that. There's a whole, I mean, there's a couple handfuls of organizations out there that provide counseling services that are, at significantly reduced rates or even free. So we do a lot of referral work for that kind of stuff. And we do have a pretty substantial list of, practitioners who have an understanding and focus of supporting people with disabilities. So that would be generally how we support people with their mental health. But it's also something that we have a few, like a couple of ambassadors who do special education generally, who've been, it's kind of a topic of special interest to them. I'm training to be, so on the side, I'm actually going to school to become a clinical mental health counselor. So we've been kind of formulating some discussions on how to navigate that mental health piece within the organization. So it's definitely a work in progress.
And Carl, you mentioned the school system having being lacking for children that are experiencing sight loss. And I've been wondering, you mentioned like the in-school stuff, and it made me think about the playgrounds. How can we make playgrounds more accessible for children with sight loss?
So good question. Color, so the use of really bright colors, textures, right? So I mean, people with sight loss are using the limited vision sight that they do have, where things like color, it's just could really come into place. But again, textures. So along the edges of things, if you have tactile bumps, like if you go to some of the, especially the newer intersections in downtown Edmonton, you'll probably see like the metal grates with raised little bumps on it. So those are for people who don't have good sight. See, using things like that in a playground environment would certainly help adapt that space. I don't know if any of you guys have seen recently, there's been a lot of research that are overprotective kind of system that we've developed in society over the last bunch of years has actually led to so in children, they don't have that same it's detrimental essentially to their social experience of going out and learning, based on their own interests and things like that. So you have to be careful not to over coddle, by having somebody there holding that kid's hand on the playground saying, "Oh, don't be careful of the edge." Like, yeah, the helicopter thing, So we got to be really careful not to over protect.
Yeah.
But as well make sure that the space is safe and inclusive and all that stuff as well. Yeah.
Frank, did you have any questions? So I know I saw you briefly, but feel
Yeah,
free, questions, just to go for it.
okay, no, thank you for the opportunity, but I don't have any questions, but I've certainly enjoyed the presentation and the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frank. If you in the future have anybody who may need to connect with us, maybe you know somebody in the community who might get someone really important access to programs and services from us, certainly feel free to send them our way. We definitely the number of people with sight loss. So in Canada, you're looking at about 2.5 million people who have either sight loss or a condition that will eventually lead to blindness or a degree of sight loss. And only a small fraction of those people are actually connected to the resources and services programs that exist. So if you can help spread the word, we would certainly appreciate sharing the fact that we're here and we want to support people.
So a lot of these adaptations, they're actually available on your website.
Yeah, a ton of them are. The one thing to keep in mind is even like really basic, cheap stuff, like relatively expensive, like a handheld magnifier or maybe not the playing cards, but that kind of stuff is going to also qualify for step funding. Yes, you can go purchase it on the website, but then you purchase it at full price. So if you qualify for the funding, it's probably worth, save yourself a few dollars. Don't spend more money than you have to.
What's the pen with you?
Yeah, talking clock.
11:59 a.m.
Yeah.
Can I ask you one practical question?
Please.
If we're walking down the street with someone who's blind, is my understanding is you always kind of do your arm like that and say, can I offer you an arm to walk with you? Is that the way to do it?
Yeah, so sighted guide, you put your arm out, they probably touch you on the elbow here. The important thing is to always, offer somebody, don't necessarily assume how you can help this person, right? Maybe be perfectly fine on their own. But it's always valued when you offer that assistance, how can I help? And let that person explain. Thank you, Henry. Yeah, like, let that person explain to you what kind of assistance they need, because unless they are in some kind of a panic or something, is going on, like, oh, it's a shooting or something, where they don't know where to go, they are gonna be able to tell you just fine what they need. Yeah, so that's a really, really important, it's just asking, right, of course.
See people speaking, you hear people speaking louder.
Yeah.
Yeah, my hearing hasn't broken, it's my eyes. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know, one other thing I'll kind of mention, because I think it's kind of a cool thing. Our children and youth programming is really important. You can, like Joe and kids do summer programming and stuff like that. But at Easter time, so coming up here at the end of March, the Edmonton Police Foundation is involved in an accessible Easter egg hunt that we do for kids and their siblings. So the bomb squad designed these, they 3D print them for us, but maybe so you can hear them. And then people in exchange for way more candy than I've ever seen a kid collect in their living room. Yeah, the police does load them up with candy, so it's a good, yeah. I don't know, have we done it noon? What's your level? Feel free to ask me questions. I'm happy to answer anything.
11 to 12, but yeah, if anyone has more questions that are.
I have a whole lot of pamphlets here. I mean, you go through some to see if there's anything that you want to hold on to. The Center for Equitable Library Access. So for anybody who wants access to like library audiobooks and stuff like that, this is a really fantastic one. There's also ASRAB. So ASRAB is the Alberta Sport and Recreation Association for the Blind. They do all kinds of amazing activities in the community. Got stuff on vision, I got stuff on volunteering, guide dogs, the organization in general, vision and aging. So I've got a whole bunch of stuff here. I guess the one last thing that I will quickly mention is, again, you mentioned that we are an organization that really depends on a volunteer community. So if you have any interest in, and turning to be a vision mate, we would absolutely 100% welcome you to join us. And I can provide you with a little flyer here, or a thing that will direct you to a web link. You can certainly call if you're interested. And then the last little thing is, a lot of people have, I mean, in this day and age, most of us are using smartphones, maybe not all of us, but a lot of us do. And we sometimes like to upgrade our phone, and we have these old phones that end up sitting everywhere. If you have any old devices that you're remotely interested in getting rid of, the CNIB will gladly accept those from you. These then, if they're an Apple device and in great condition, they'll go right onto the obviously device, but they'll go onto a client who needs a device. Phones and stuff are expensive, and as I mentioned, people side lots are often underemployed. So being able to have access to that smart device is super, super important. And if it ends up being not an Apple device, or even if it's busted, we can still send them in and get a credit for them, in which we can purchase new devices. You are eligible for a tax receipt and all that kind of stuff. So if you are remotely interested and want to get rid of some old devices in your closet, we would happily take those.
Laptops.
Not laptops, no, just smartphones.
On an iPad, just.
I'm not even sure, to be 100% honest. Yeah. I know
Just talking to the
I
kids
know
the other
we
day
do
about.
give iPads, but I don't know if it's part of this program.
Too bad you don't treat Google devices the same way.
It's just that the accessibility features
No.
just really are not nearly as good as the Apple ones, so we can't only, we provide Apple
No,
devices and all. I mean, we certainly provide training on all the accessibility features on an Android device. But the Apple ones just are really phenomenal. They've done a really good job with the accessibility features, so we're pretty keen on those.
Thank you, Carl.
Yes,
thank you.
for having me. If you have any other organizations in the community you're involved with and you think that they would, value, get some value out of having us come and speak with them as well, we would certainly invite you to have us kind of join you there for a second presentation. We'd love to join you. So please feel free to call out to us and we'll come to you.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's like, yes.
I don't know,